So, hey, Seen, hope you're doing great. And my name is Naba Zehra. I'm your host for today. And we're happy to have you with us as our guest in the brand new series of Media Matters under Fabulous. And it's our honor to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. I was in India for about 3 weeks last month, and too bad I
How
couldn't
do,
be there in person. But
yeah. How do you find India?
oh, it's fantastic. It was just the most amazing time. I went for a wedding. My nephew was getting married in Chandigarh, so from there it was just sort of like, all right, spent time in Delhi and Jaipur and Udaipur and just sort of all over the place.
Amazing. We are based in Delhi.
Oh, you're in Delhi. Okay,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
Okay, so one thing more. Well, back to our interview. Well, before starting the questions, I would like to inform you that this interview will be published on the website of Fabulous. So you can sign up to the Fabulous website and then you'll get the access to watch this interview.
Okay, sounds
And
good.
we'll upload this in a month or so.
Yeah,
Will that work for you?
works fine. Absolutely.
Okay, so shall we proceed with the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, my very first question for you, Scene, is that can you tell us about your role as Dean of Visual Arts and Communication at ArtCenter College of Design?
Well, first it's Sean. I know everybody gets that wrong. I think it's like Sean Connery spelled it that way too.
You're Sean.
It's Sean. It's a Gaelic Irish way of spelling it. So
Okay, so very sorry. I apologize for that, and I'll
not a
reset.
problem. I spent some time in Germany and nobody could get it. It was like totally out of their possibility. I just eventually just said it's Johann. It was easier that way. So Art Center, I don't know, if for anyone that doesn't know, is it's one of the best art and design schools in the world. I think we're always ranked somewhere between 1 and 3, depending on the year, internationally. It's an amazing program. In my division, what I oversee is fine art, graphic design, advertising, and illustration, which are the largest programs in the school. I mean, I'm just lucky. I'm just blessed that I get to work with such amazing people. Each department has a chair, so they really determine where they're going. Like it's up to the chair to say, I think we should focus on AI, or I think we should do this. And it's my job just to be in the background and kind of support them and kind of help give them the tools they need, all that nitty gritty kind of curricular stuff that happens in a college.
Okay, well, moving to the next question. What inspired you to pursue a career in designing and education?
When I was in high school, so my whole life, my parents and my grandparents had said, well, you'll do what we've always done. And people have been in politics in my family for like hundreds of years. So they were like, you'll be a senator or you'll be a governor. That's your job. That's what we do. And so all through high school, like that's what I was planning, and I went to Harvard and I did my interview and I was like but in the meantime, people at school were asking me, "Oh, could you design the poster for like the spring musical, or could you design, the flyer for our, I don't know, the homecoming dance, and all these different things." And I loved doing that. Like that was where I really was having fun. I remember getting this like really cool catalog in the mail. The art teacher had one, and she had one from Art Center and she had one from Cal Arts, and I was like, okay, I'm doing that. I don't care what my grandparents and my parents say. I love this. This is the direction I'm moving in.
Very interesting.
They weren't happy with that choice. They were, for I think until the day they died, they all were like, "What do you do exactly?"
My God, it's like same with my parents. They're like, okay, you can be a doctor, you can be a doctor, and now I'm a journalist, and I'm like, this is my path.
Exactly. Yeah, you're the one that has to live with it. Yeah. You guys all had fun. You did your thing. Like I actually have to like do what I love to do.
Exactly. Okay, moving to the next question. How do you approach fostering creativity and innovation in your students?
That's such a good question. It's I mean, I always find like people that are creatives are kind of driven. Like they like it's like this it's inside of them. You don't choose it, it chooses you. And so they want to make, they're always like, I got to make new stuff. I got to create something. And what I've always tried to do, and previous to being a dean, I was a chair, was trying to expose them to as much as possible. to really get them to start asking questions. Because I think we could all slip into just, I'll make something cool. Like, isn't that groovy? Like, I did some cool type, but what does it mean? And what's the cultural significance? And who is it talking to? And they kind of resist at the beginning. I've always found, like, in their first year, students are like, yeah, why do I have to care about that stuff? And then they start getting into it. And you're like, no, this is what makes it fun. It's like, you have to learn a completely new subject, and you've got to learn a whole new group of people that you've probably never thought about before, if that's the audience you're talking to. So a lot of it is really trying to get them in the mode of always asking questions, like question authority. Your client will always be wrong. Like, your client will always give you the wrong assignment because that's all they know. You have to question it so that you can actually solve their problem. And so it's a lot of it's that. I'd love for them to read more, but that's like, I don't know. I've given up on that. That's, like, please.
What I also feel is that better teaching, the best teaching is very important for the students to
Mhm.
create that, that enthusiasm into them, that, it's interesting. Somehow teachers have to make those things interesting for the students so that they'll grab their attention.
Yeah, you can't phone it in. I mean, the faculty that we have in each one of the programs is stellar. And it's every once in a while someone might come along and they've never taught before, and you give them a class and it doesn't work. And it's not because they're a bad artist or a bad designer. They just don't have the patience or something. And they kind of art direct as opposed to help educate. And, like, as a teacher, your job is to find that one amazing, unique thing that makes that person special and let it blossom. Like, help them have the confidence to allow that to, like, let your freak flag fly, just go for it. And the ones that don't work, or the teachers that don't work, tend to be the ones that are like a little too, like, it has to be this way. This is the only way. And, you know,
Okay, yes, completely understand. And okay, my next question for you is that what's the recent initiative or the project at ArtCenter College of Design that you're particularly proud of?
we're always doing so many things. And I was in a meeting earlier today, and someone was talking about, hey, what if we should try this and this and this? And I always have to remind people there is no shortage of ideas here. Okay. We all have a ton of ideas, but we just got to figure out who's going to do it, like, what's going to happen. And there's a couple that I'm really excited about. One is tearing down the walls between the programs. So, like, in the old days, you would your major was graphic design, or your major was advertising or fine art, and that's what you did. And I've been working with the other deans to figure out ways that we can sort of tear those walls down. So you can be a graphic designer, but maybe you're interested in film. So you take classes in the film program, or you're an illustrator and you want to do gaming. So you take classes in the gaming department. So allowing that for that flexibility, which means more advising, because you don't want students just, flying all over the place and ending up with nothing. But that idea of letting them craft their own adventure is really exciting to me. And you can imagine the red tape in that. It's, academia is not built for that. And then the other initiative that the graphic design and the advertising programs have really launched this term were like a heavy push into AI. Just, like, multiple workshops and 3 different courses. And it's not about how do I make a cool robot in AI. It's actually, strangely enough, it's about writing more than it is about anything else. Like, you have to be a good writer because you got to understand the right prompts, and you have to understand history, or you're just spitting in the wind, right? So it's almost more like being a journalist, where it's like, you got to be a smart, actual human being that can write. And it's so important. And, because otherwise you just end up with the same stuff over and over again. But if you can give it the right prompt and know a little history, you're going to say, I want it to feel like, you know, England in 1425, you're going to get something that means something. So I like that the fact that instead of retreating from AI and saying we're terrified of it, the faculty just leaned into it. We're like, what can we make with this? How can this work for us?
Exactly. Okay, my next question for you, Sean, is that how did your experiences as a co-founder of AdamsMorioka shape your approach to design and leadership? So I've researched about you, and I know what the things you've done. So that is why I've made an interesting questionnaire for you.
It's sort of interesting. So the story behind that was I was working. I had like two or three jobs. Like I worked for the New York Public Library for a while, and I worked with Lorraine Wild for a little bit, and then I was working with the designer April Greiman, who's a remarkable designer. And I worked with April for about 5 years as the design manager in her office.
Okay.
And I got to be about 28 or 29, and I was kind of thinking like I had my own vision. And I was getting to that point where I was like, either I launch out on my own or I just resign myself to I'll always work for other people. But it's so scary to do that, right? Like you got rent to pay and stuff like that. And it's hard, right? And I remember I talked to my grandfather about it, and I was like, I was terrified. And he had his own business, and he said, hey, look, I started my business and I had two children to support. So yeah, I could do that. And then I asked Saul Bass, who's an amazing, his legendary designer. And Saul said, I said, when would be the right time to actually do that? He said, there's never the right time. It's like getting pregnant. There's never going to be the perfect time. You're just going to do it or not. And and so I did. I was like, I called my friend Noreen and I said, what do you think about like we should just do a studio together and see what happens? And we launched the company, and it was sort of at the height of a period when graphic design was very sort of dystopic and kind of chaotic and lots of layers, and it was very grunge, like very Nirvana grunge kind of a thing. And we just wanted to make stuff that was clean and legible and understandable and actually kind of had optimism to it. And strangely enough, it caught on like really fast. And we didn't expect it. We thought, oh, we'll just trudge along for a few years. And then all of a sudden, like within a few months, you're getting asked to speak at conferences and you're being published and clients are coming through the door. So it was a blessing. It was really an amazing experience. Yeah.
What I feel is that, starting something is important. Even if you're failing on that thing, starting
Hmm.
something which you want to do is important rather than doing nothing. Because you will regret your whole life if you're not even starting.
Right. I mean, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Big deal, right? But at least you tried. You could say, I gave it a shot. I mean, there's things I've done I suck at. And I'm like, okay, I tried it. I'm not good at that. So for sure.
It worked for you. It worked amazingly for you.
Yeah, we were at the right place at the right time. And
Exactly.
and it was such a clear difference from the rest of the work that was being created in the profession that I think that's what really kind of and clients liked it. They were all of a sudden because all of a sudden clients were like, "Oh, thank God, I can read it." It was so that was pretty great.
Okay. Well, moving to the next question, Sean. What does receiving the AIGA medal means to you, and how has it influenced your career?
It meant an enormous amount to me. It's like you know, AIGA. It's the American Institute of Graphic Arts. It's been around for 120 years, and every year they would give one or two medals to a designer in the world. Um, I had never thought I would get one. I'm like, come on, it's just me, right? And honestly, I never considered it. It was like, that's never going to happen. I'm just an ordinary designer. I'm not Paul Rand, right? And so when I got the call that, I was being awarded this, it was really groundbreaking. I mean, it helped, me, it validated like, okay, I'm not a complete moron. I must kind of know what I'm doing. And it really made me feel proud to be part of a group of other medalists that I respected enormously. And it actually created a big change in my life. That happened. It's funny how these time periods in your life, I always think they happen every 7 years. You get these like 7-year thingamajigs, And I think that happened. I was 49 and I got the medal. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, that was like a giant goal I never thought I would hit. And I was thinking about that and I thought about, the business had done incredibly well and I'd gotten all the awards I'd ever wanted, worked with all the clients I'd ever wanted to. And I started to feel like maybe it's time to send the elevator back down. Like I can't hang on to it myself. Like it's time to give back and it's time to help the next generation because I'd done it. Like I'd had my time. And that was the catalyst. That medal really was the catalyst. It was like, it's time to get back. And that's when, I talked to my business partner and I said, I really want to focus on education. I want to, I want to make sure the next generation of designers is incredibly well equipped to enter the field.
Such a great decision.
Yeah. You lose a lot of money that way, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so moving to the next question, Sean. Can you share the story behind founding Burning Settler's Cabin and its significance in your creative journey?
You have such good questions. I love it when clearly you've done like great research and you actually like they're great. I love them.
Thank you.
So I was national president of AIGA twice. Like I think I'm the only person that's ever done it twice in its entire history, which means I'm stupid. But my first term as president, you're in a position where whatever you say can be constructed as you're speaking for the whole design community, right? Like this is good. All of a sudden that means that's the official stance. So you kind of lose your personal voice because it's like, well, anything you say can be misinterpreted and that affects many people. And a person that was working in my office, Terry Stone, who was our strategist, said, why don't you start your own blog? And this was back in 2007, and she said, that'll give you a chance to actually have your own voice outside of the official, like, presidential stuff you talk about. And I'm like, well, who wants to read that kind of, it's stupid. She said, just do it for yourself. Like, just write about stuff you're interested in.
So you started it in 2007.
2007. Yeah. It was this wonky WordPress platform. It was amazing. Yeah.
These things are famous now, and in 2007, nobody even knows about that.
And then we were like, what? Well, how do you do this? And it was so low res. Like all the images are like 450, pixels wide. That was the most you could do. And I just started to write about things that I was interested in and sort of did it every week and just kept moving along. And so when I decided, okay, it's time to stop AdamsMorioka and focus on education, a lot of people said, could you just please continue with that? Like, it's one of my favorite places to go and get inspired. And you hit so many weird different topics. It's really good to do. And so it was more for me than anything. It was really just like, oh, I'm interested in talking about this. And sort of like you pointed out, it's like, I don't worry so much about like, is this going to get good ratings? Like, oh, am I going to get a lot of hits on this story? If I do, then you're starting to like, it gets watered down. Like everybody's interested in this right now. So I was like, who cares? If one person looks at it, that's fine with me, but I'm interested in talking about this one stupid thing. And I guess that's sort of one of the secrets in life, right? Like if you do what you love, people can be attracted to that. And as opposed to trying to force what you think they'll like.
Okay, very well said. Okay, my next question is that how do you stay inspired and engaged in the everlasting, that ever evolving field of design?
That's a great one too. I mean, a big part of it is travel. Like I know everybody says that, like going and visiting other cultures. I mean, a lot of it too is obviously like, I read a lot. I might read a lot of nonfiction. So I might get really inspired. Like I was reading a book on the history of Scotland. And I was like, oh, I really got to learn about like Scottish, like, ancient runes and what they meant. But then, when we were in India, it had an enormous impact on me, because, it's like one of the most beautiful places on the planet, right? Like, and the colors are like intense. And to see a culture embrace color, that's you go to England, everyone's wearing gray, right? You go to New York, everyone's wearing black. And, in LA, yeah, we wear colors, but it was amazing. You go to India, you're like, oh, those beautiful colors. And then the amount of pattern that was on everything. And the density of the pattern, and then the meaning of sort of the Mughal architecture in terms of what those patterns meant, that it just, all of a sudden I was like, I got to learn everything I can about this. I've got to understand like the history, where these came from, what this means. Okay, is that a lotus or is that, an elephant? What are these things? And I wouldn't have gotten there by reading a book if I just looked at a nice book on Indian pattern. But when you go there and you see it in person, and it's miraculous, and so as much as possible, I tell people, like, get off your computer and go out into the world. Like, you're not going to see it on Pinterest. It's not going, you got to experience what you love.
Very interesting, by the way, Sean. Okay, moving to the next question. What role do you think design plays in addressing social and cultural challenges today?
Excuse me. It is a critical component. Just this morning, I was asked by a publisher, could you please, there's a new book coming out. Could you, look at the manuscript, give us some thoughts about it? And the first thing I went back to them was, I need a better cultural perspective here. I need representation. Like, it's very, very US centered. It's just focused on one audience. Where can we do that? And as designers or as image makers of any kind, we produce popular culture. Like, we are purveyors of meaning. And if you as a designer are blind to issues that the world is facing, you're probably doing harm. First rule as a designer, do no harm, right? Number one, so really celebrating differences in people and finding those things that are amazingly, incredibly rare in different cultures it's first off, it's incredibly fun, right? Like, it's just totally an exciting thing to do. But then secondly, it's the right thing to do. It's, to try to homogenize your audience. Like, for years, like when I first started teaching, I would, be working in a class that was like logo design and like a branding class. And then I would ask the students, like, well, who's your audience? You're designing Philippine Airlines. Like, what's your audience? And they'd say, everybody. I'm like, okay, that's a little broad. Like, maybe we could focus it. And so what I started to do was, I found if I gave the students very strict parameters, the work got more interesting. So let's say you were doing a rebranding of Amazon. And I would say, okay, your audience, let's pretend your audience is only Hispanic women between 18 and 34. You need to learn about that world, and you need to understand what drives them. So I think as creative individuals, yeah, we have to be aware of, we live in a multicultural world. We live in an international global society, and that is incredible, right? Like, that's like, I mean, what a lucky time to be alive when we're in this position. But at the same time, the images you make have meaning. Someone was working on a project a couple months ago, and I just happened to walk by the classroom, and it was sort of I don't think they intended any harm. I think they just hadn't thought about it. And it was an image of like a silhouette of a woman in a bikini and sort of bending over, like as if she were talking to someone in a car. And I went in and I said, do you think that might be objectifying women a little bit? Like, I don't even see her face. Like, you've depersonalized her 100% and made her just an object. And the student was like, I never thought about that. Wow. I've seen that and I liked it. I never thought of it that way. And I love that. You saw a light bulb turn off, and they're like, and I said, why don't you use a real person? Like, find an actual real human being woman that you are in school with. Maybe make her the model, like someone normal. And they did. And the end product was so great. It was this poster that beautifully photographed of someone who looks like a real human being that was selling this, museum identity the person was working on. But it's just being aware. It's sort of like, am I helping others or am I creating damage?
No. Well, you're helping others in a very, very best possible way.
Yeah, believe me, it's not, it's a challenge. It's like, you would think everybody would be like on board in a second, but I have had, especially in their first year, I've had so many, especially young men, come to my office and say, my teacher's making us do this whole thing and we're supposed to worry about like the cultural sensitivity, but That's all bullshit, isn't it? Why should I have to do it? And I'm like, it's not. This isn't just someone being like hocus pocusy.
Sean, what I think is just because they're in first year, they, don't know much. Okay. Gradually they'll understand the thing. So that is why, handling the first year, I also experienced that in my university. When I was in first year, I was like, why is it happening? Why? But yes, of course, in the last, I'll be like, okay, whatsoever I've learned. Yes,
Yeah, yeah. And also when you're in your first year, you're like 19 years old and you think you know everything.
exactly.
So
So yes, I can relate. My teachers was to always they used to say that you always have a question and you always counter question us. And the main reason was that I was very much into asking questions and why this and why that and I don't feel this right. But yes, gradually I've understood that this is how it works and this whatever my teachers taught me that was actually accurate and correct, and
mhm.
it is helping me now in my life.
Yeah, but you're obviously a born journalist. If you were asking questions all the time, you're like their favorite. I mean, the students that ask the questions are the ones you love because you're like, oh my God, they're engaged.
Exactly. Yeah, that engagement after asking questions, it shows that you're interested.
Yeah.
Some of the students are like, "Oh, okay, fine," but they don't understand things. But yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I tell people like speak up. Don't be shy. Just speak up. Like nobody's gonna beat you up if you say something stupid. Like we all do. Just.
I can understand you as a teacher. You'll be like, "Please speak up, ask to me." Like, and I am available right now, but in future maybe I will not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my very last question for you is that what advice would you like to give to aspiring designers looking to build impactful and meaningful careers?
Well, okay, here's the advice that I got, and I'll then give my advice following it. When I
Okay.
started my company, and I asked Saul Bass, like, give me some advice. What should I do? And Saul said, triple your fees right away. Like, just try it on the next project. Triple what you would charge and see if it works. And it did. He said, get a business manager, more expensive than you think that you can spend because you're a designer. You're probably not great with finances. Um, and and just be nice. Like, be nice to your clients, and they'll be happy. When people go out and start working, one of the first things that I think is really important is work for someone else for a little while. Like, learn how they do work, and then you should determine like, am I the kind of person that wants, am I an entrepreneur and I want that freedom, but also that risk? Or do I prefer more security and stability in life? And both are valid. And I think once you've made that choice, you're like, okay, yeah, I want stability. Great. Then be the very best designer, artist in whatever company you're working for, which means always be curious, always be asking questions, you know, never sit at your desk like, what do I do next? Just take initiative. You should be the first one in and the last one out, and it's just hard work, right? Like in any profession, it's like,
Exactly. And no one is judging.
no, no.
Asking question is not wrong. It's like it shows that you're interested.
Yes. And I'd rather have someone like when I was, working and, with my design, I had a staff of 15 designers, and I'd much rather they ask me a question than do it completely wrong and waste a day. Like, if they come back and say, hey, did you want it like this or this? I want to be like, oh, no, no, no. The client hates that. It's so much better than, it was like, you can't over question someone. But yeah, engage and ask questions and then just stay inspired, and always focus on the work. Ignore the money. Don't ignore, well, you got to get paid, right? Like you got to make a living, but don't ever do anything just for money. It'll always go badly. And do what you love. Like if you do what you love, you'll get more of it. If you get really good at something you hate, you'll get more of it.
Yes, completely. Yes, and it's a true. It's a true
Yeah.
thing. Okay, well, that's all for today. Thank you so much, Sean, for giving your precious time to us. It was amazing. Like, it was my pleasure to take your interview, and it was very interesting yet informative conversation. And one thing more, don't forget to sign up to the Fabulous website.